Hello, everybody. I hope you had a good week. We just have one day left before the weekend, and Serp and I decided let's do a retrospective of Terminator because is there a situation where you shouldn't be doing a retrospective of Terminator, where you shouldn't be just covering Terminator? I don't really think so either. It left before the week. Yeah, so we've been wanting to do this for a while. I keep putting it off because just a bunch of stuff has been happening lately. But yeah, welcome on, Serp. It's always good to have you on. You're a viewer favorite.
Oh, well, thank you. I just kind of, I just rewatched all six of the main films, and it's just kind of like a franchise that for a long time held a pretty special place in my heart, and which is kind of, I feel, really gone in the gutter in like a sad way, and that it's kind of like weighed down its legacy.
Is it the
So
like
it's
the
just an
biggest
interesting topic.
implosion?
Um, I
I'm just
think
trying to
that
think if there's
Star
another big.
Wars.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I think Star Wars with its fan base and like in terms of like how many fans are will not say they like it anymore is more severe. But I think like Terminator's hurt its cultural relevant. I think Star Wars, even if it's hated, is still culturally relevant. Well, I feel like Terminator is no longer culturally relevant, that it's been sabotaged by its sequels.
Yeah, I would tend to say that, and I saw a lot of people coping about Terminator Zero, saying it like wasn't that bad. I really disliked it personally, but I mean you didn't see it, so we won't go into that. But I don't know. I would say like Terminator Dark Fate, I hated more than any of the Star Wars sequels, and I hated the Star Wars sequels. But I don't know. I just found Terminator Dark Fate just like was physically like unpleasant to watch.
So I expected Terminator Dark Fate to be up there with the Hip Hop Witch,
Hmm.
and then it wasn't, so I was disappointed that it was just a very bad movie instead of unwatchable.
No, that actually made it worse, in my opinion. It's a bit like the problem with The Last Jedi. Like, The Last Jedi is in many ways a competently made movie, and that makes it worse because it shows that it was on purpose. It wasn't just like they fucked up, it's they were actively trying to make the worst thing they could.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of jumping ahead to the last thing, but the thing about Dark Fate or Feministnator 6 or whatever is like, um, there's no love. Like it's purely like it's not even like a social justice warrior like stole it to like make it in their own idea. It purely exists like to shit on the rest of the series and make it feminist.
Yeah, well, and to say that anybody who likes it is like a bad person and it was never good, and just kind of all that stuff. Um, yeah, it was made by people who hate it. I think it's kind of like I'm trying to think what's another example. Well, the Star Wars sequels are definitely like that, especially the Last Jedi. Um, any Netflix series, anytime Netflix adapts something, that is what it is. It's made
Rip.
to shit on the people who like the franchise. This, yeah, that it's from. So, what was the first Terminator movie you saw?
Um, so when I was a kid, my parents had this like kind of like VHS cabinet.
Yep,
And
mine
so
did
it
too.
like had all these like plastic divots that you placed all the movies in, of course, clamshells and any kind of special type of VHS wouldn't fit into it.
Hmm.
And so my parents had I had younger siblings, and my parents didn't pay that attention to me watching our movies. So Terminator 1, that the side of the movie of the VHS tape with the leather jacket he's wearing, for whatever reason to my child mind, reminded me of Godzilla, which prompted me to watch Terminator 1 and then Terminator 2
That is
at a
the most
very
brutally
young age
autistic
when I
reason
shouldn't have.
for watching. That
Yes,
is fucking amazing.
I thought it was like Godzilla's suit, when I was looking at it, and then I pulled it out, and I'm like, this isn't it. And so I looked at it so many times that I decided to just watch it.
Hmm.
Um, and then I mean, I liked it,
My dad used
and
to. Oh, sorry. Go on.
no, that's about it. That's how I got exposed to the series.
My dad, whenever like we were driving back from like a long trip or something, when I was a kid, I'd ask him to tell me stories, and he'd tell me basically movie plots. So he told me like the plot of Terminator, and then we eventually watched it, and it just I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. I didn't really remember the first time I watched Terminator. I remember Terminator 2. Like, I watched Terminator 2 probably like 20 times when I was a kid. I kept getting it out and like rewatching it. And I love that movie. It's probably my second favorite movie of all time after The Matrix, but it's
S-
just so good in so many ways.
So Terminator 2, I think, was played on, I don't know if you have that up there, the American Movie Channel, AMC, is like the number one movie I would think that they ever put on that channel in its entire history.
Right.
It's been played, so I've seen it from the middle or somewhere in the middle or the ending or part of it a million different
Yeah.
times just when I was a kid, just flipping through the channels. And it's like if you land on it, then you're going to watch through as much as you can when you're like 10.
You know what was like that for me was Attack of the Clones. That played on
Ooh.
like AMC or whatever a lot. And if my dad was flipping through, we'd just sit down and watch some of Attack of the Clones. Uh
Hmm.
just because it's dumb, but it's very, very watchable.
Hmm. But
But
I would say that Terminator 2 is like the most popular movie for men, like a mode. It's not like the mean most popular, but if you asked 100 men, I think that the most popular movie for saying their favorite movie would be Terminator. Like it would be like Terminator 2 would be like for 1/4 of like American men would be their favorite movie.
yeah.
But do you want to get through the series starting with the first one
Okay,
on our
sure.
reviews of them?
Sure. So
Um,
you've watched them a bit more recently than I have. So what were your thoughts rewatching? Because I liked it a lot more. So there's a couple movies that when I rewatched, like I don't know if as an adult would be the right term. Like I saw them when I was in my teens, but I rewatched them in like my 20s or 30s. I liked more. Like I didn't like Blade Runner that much the first time I watched it, but when I rewatched it when I was like 30, I thought it was much much better than the first time. Terminator 1 was a bit like that for me. When I rewatched it like years later, it was a lot better than I remembered it being.
well, I never really had that kind of experience. Like I always probably rewatched it pretty, I don't know, once every year or every other year for some time. So I've always just had a very positive opinion of the movie. In fact, this is my favorite of all the movies. I actually prefer this one over the second one, just because I like the more, I guess, neo-noir influence. Some people say it's tech-noir after the club in the movie, and that I feel like this movie leans more on
I
it
can see
being
that.
sci-fi.
It's hard to describe your style, but this is yeah, this definitely fits more into it.
Yeah, it's also just, I mean, it whatever in 1984 when it came out, it's a $6 million movie. I just tend to like,
Low
I guess my
budget things.
style. I like something that are more low budget or more gritty due to having a low budget,
Yeah.
and this definitely feels that way, especially in comparison to the all the movies that came after this one, because they all have all the money in the world after this one, while this one is just about a robot trying to kill a girl.
Well, and I just think because I watch so much Mystery Science Theater 3000, there's like so many movies like monster movies or creature features of like X type of robot or like there's a horror movie for basically any inanimate object you can think of, but this one was just so much better done than all the other ones.
Hmm.
Like it took the gimmick and it actually made something out of it. Um,
So something that I find interesting is, do you think that it's cyberpunk?
I think you could make the argument.
I think it has elements of what would become cyberpunk. I wouldn't say it's cyberpunk necessarily. Um,
It's
it's
punk.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely
It's
has a lot of
punk
the
punk.
aspects of like the dirtiness, the whole noir with,
Yeah,
or not noir, I guess like that kind of
film
like this
noir.
dirty world, dark world, neon lit like Blade Runner,
Hmm.
and the idea of artificial intelligence. Um, it doesn't really involve people in changing themselves through machines as much because, of course, the Terminator is a cyborg. There's no people that are mixed in with being turning into robots over time.
Right.
I don't know. Should we go through the plot? I
Uh,
mean, is there anybody in the audience that doesn't know what the plot
oh
is?
well, they can. It doesn't matter. It's they can watch the movies themselves. If they don't
Oh,
know what it is. Something I like. It's just a very clean plot. Like it's pretty simple on the face of it. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do with it, but I appreciate just thinking about it at the moment that it's very easy to understand. So for those of you who aren't aware, I'm just going to give a brief summary of what the plot of the Terminator is. So humanity builds a AI called Skynet, which is given control over America's nuclear weapons. So it starts a nuclear war. I believe it says with the Soviet Union. Um,
yeah, that's in the second movie they say
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah. In order, so it starts a nuclear war. It wipes out most of the Earth as it sees humans as a threat to itself. And then in the future, there's like a post-apocalyptic battle between Skynet and the remnants of humanity. Skynet is about to lose the war, but it invents a time machine. The only problem is the time machine can only send flesh back in time. So they have this construction called a Terminator, which is a metal skeleton with human flesh over it. So they send the Terminator back in time to assassinate the mother of John Connor, who would become the leader of the resistance that would ultimately defeat Skynet. And uh, John Connor sends Kyle Reese back in time to protect his mother. And then it winds up turns out that Kyle Reese is his father. But it's, I think, a very kind of straightforward plot line, especially when it comes to time travel, because time travel can very easily become really insane and retarded and stuff.
Part of the reason that this is my favorite one is that the idea of closed loop time travel is very compelling to me. The idea that the action of time traveling itself doesn't change anything, that the time travel had always occurred in the plot, and that all of future history and the past all takes place in some kind of cluster time or group time. That doesn't negate somebody's free will. It's just that all time takes place simultaneously.
Right.
And so the effects of the time travel are already felt by the time the events happen.
Hmm.
So I'm very compelled by that. It makes much more sense than something like Back to the Future, where you're like, I bumped into my mom, so now I'm never gonna be born. So now I gotta put my mom and dad together. And so this movie is a closed loop time travel where Kyle Reese was always born to be the father of John Connor, and the picture that she takes of herself was always going to be the picture that he had in the future, to think about her, to recognize her when he goes to the past.
Hmm.
And so I've just always found that much more compelling than the idea that time travel would that there would be alternate universes as a result of time travel, which is what the sequels run with. This is the much more popular version of time travel.
So
I just find that a very compelling thing. I'm just very compelled by the idea of fate in such a way.
just the in Terminator Zero, they explicitly state, and this is why part of the reason I hate it so much, that they're all time streams are completely separate worlds, so you can't actually change the past. You just create a new timeline. And then they say, so what's even the point of using time travel? And they said there is none. We just do it because they they never provide an explanation for it. So like their theory is just you go back in time, it creates a new timeline. It's of no benefit to the people who sent you back in time.
Hmm.
Whereas with this, it's very it's monument, like it's impactful. I guess
Hmm.
to say.
I have a question then with Terminator Zero. Can multiple attempts to go back in time occur simultaneously? If that was true, then wouldn't each attempt going back in time not exist in the same universe that another attempt happened?
I don't know. That's another interesting question. Or there would be a universe where multiple attempts happen at the same time, and then like a universe where each individual attempt only I don't know. I don't like multiple timelines myself. I think it's just it's too hard to follow. Um, but yeah. So
I
also the
mean,
other
I
thing
feel
about
like.
sorry,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Just the guy in Terminator Zero builds a time machine in his basement or whatever.
I feel like maybe I don't know if there's an actual description. I'm just making up these concepts of time travel as I go by. But I feel like Terminator 2 might like be I don't know anything else to call it, like scaffolding time travel, where it's like the events caused by the time travel create the events that are going on. It doesn't matter if like Skynet is destroyed, John Connor still exists
Mm-hmm.
because it's scaffolded by previous events that occurred due to time travel.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of how Terminator 2 works rather than a closed loop. It's more like if the event that create the current event that's ongoing happened, then it kind of just scaffolds those
Yeah.
characters and those events back into the current world.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I think something I really like, and Arnold does a really good job, particularly. And I was rewatching some clips of it. Is he does really capture the like slow, inevitable machine gate. Like he's just
Hmm.
not in any particular hurry. He knows that there's really nothing that anybody can do to stop him. So he just very methodically and calmly goes through things. I do like that he took efforts to like just not act like a human who happened to be a robot, but to act just completely like alien.
I do think that he's a good actor in the sense of like a silent film actor is a good actor in English language movies. I don't know if he's ever done German language movies, but in these very early movies, this one and Conan, you can definitely tell that almost all his acting occurs through his face and occurs through his body movements, and he deliberately says as least lines as possible, um, just so that it doesn't have too much. His accent doesn't, drown out
What
I
he's
guess
trying to
the
go with.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me a little bit almost of Hayden Christensen in the Star Wars prequels. Wherein
Hmm.
like his actual acting job I think is quite good. I think the script is kind of shitty, but like if you go by his like facial expressions and body language and stuff, I think it's actually he does a fairly competent job. It's just that George didn't write it particularly well. Just a bit like that with Arnold, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. The thing with low budget movies that's kind of nice is the action scenes are probably more realistic. They're less
Yeah, that's definitely a reason that I like low budget films, and is that it feels like it could happen because they're doing it's much closer to what they're able to do with the resources they have. so it ends up being much more grounded.
Like I was rewatching the police station shootout, and like that felt very much like what probably would happen in real life. Like it's just a panic, people grabbing guns and firing, and no one knows what the hell's even going on. And it's not like it's clean or choreographed or whatever, but it's probably more like what would have happened than the than what we get later on.
So what do you think of Jim Cameron as a writer here? Do you think that he's a good writer, a good director?
I have very mixed feelings about James Cameron. What do you think?
Is a
Maybe go
person or in
first.
general?
In general, do you want to maybe go first? What your
Um,
thoughts are?
yeah, so I think that Jim Cameron is a tremendously talented person. I think that what happened to him actually is pretty similar to what happened to George Lucas in that he kind of ends up getting overwhelmed by his own fame and his
Success.
own wealth and own success. Yeah, to where he just has an unlimited budget to make whatever he wants. And so now he's making Avatar with like unbelievable amounts of money, and it takes unbelievable amounts of time for him to make every movie. But when he still had like all the power of your so-called auteur theory, where he was both writer and director, and had a lot of and producer, I think, on Terminator 2, he was very accomplished. But when he goes all the way to be the like all of being the money man and being in absolute control, then it he just grinds to this slow halt. I don't think that Avatar, maybe this is controversial. I don't think Avatar is like truly terrible. I think that they're okay, but I think the real
I think Way of
tragedy
the
is that
Water was a lot worse than Avatar one,
I
but
have not seen Way of
good.
Water, so maybe I have no room to stay. So I do this funny thing. If I don't want to see a movie, I don't see it. I know it's kind of revolutionary. So I didn't think I would like Way of Water, so I didn't see it.
Okay, so
But
here's what I think.
oh, go
I
ahead.
think there's certain directors and certain writers and stuff like that who are immensely talented, but as my friend Abstract puts it, they have to be kept on a short leash. They need someone
Hmm.
there to tell them no, to tell them no, you can't do your stupid shit. I think George Lucas is like that. I think Michael Bay might be the ultimate example of that. Because I think Michael Bay is a very talented filmmaker. It's just if he has 100% creative control, he does really dumb shit. I think James Cameron is also kind of like that. Who else is like that? Christopher Nolan, I think, is like that too. They need somebody to kind of like prevent them from just going too far. And I think post Titanic, just no one was going to tell James Cameron no. Um, so we just get Avatar, which is just him being. Someone said Tim Burton. Yeah, that's probably another good example. It's someone just with no like restraints, no one trying to keep him in check, and that's just what he winds up doing. With unlimited money.
Hmm. But I mean, definitely true. But I mean, if you go back to the 80s and 90s, he was clearly a highly important filmmaker. He made Terminator 1 and 2, he made Aliens, he wrote or was one of the primary writers behind Rambo 2. I think he also had a hand in what's the surfing movie where the surfers rob stuff?
Uh, I know. I'm bringing out. I'm looking at his film. Let me just switch this on.
Point Break. I thought he had a hand in Point Break. The Abyss is okay. I mean, The Abyss and True Lies are good but not great movies. And I mean,
Uh,
even the Titanic, I think both Titanic and Avatar, whether or not you like them or adore them, were groundbreaking in terms of just how much power they had over the zeitgeist and how much money they made.
okay. Let me see what else. Okay, I'm just going back. I'm
So,
just.
in terms of like
Oh,
directly
his
directed,
first movie was Piranha 2: The Spawning, which he
yes, he
disavowed.
started out under Roger Corman and did a lot of the effects for Roger Corman movies in the late 70s and early 80s.
Okay, so we got the Terminator movies. We have True Lies. I don't really remember too much about. I remember True Lies being like okay, but not loving it.
I think it's good but not great.
Uh,
Like it's a decent action movie if you like Arnold.
I never watched the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Uh, I will be honest. I loved Avatar the first time I watched it back when I was in university. Like I'm not gonna pretend that I hated it. Like if I watched it again, I probably wouldn't like it as much now. But I saw it twice in theaters and I really enjoyed it. And I'm not gonna do what some people do and pretend that they didn't like a movie.
Retroactively hate it because it's fashionable.
Yeah, because it's cringy or it's cringe now. Alita, did you see Alita Battle Angel?
Yes, I saw it like opening day.
What did you think?
It's good but not great. He wrote and produced it.
Uh,
Robert Rodriguez directed though.
yeah, I would agree with that. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was amazing though. I thought the anime movie was better. Um, but it wasn't like it was bad or anything. What the fuck? Avatar 5 2031.
Yes. So he is in his 70s, right? He's 70
Yeah.
and there's avatars that go like into his 90s that are scheduled or something insane like that.
Yeah, it doesn't it doesn't make any sense. Like so
But
yeah,
I okay, like so let's say
oh,
we
someone also
gather up.
said Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, Quentin Tarantino is maybe the ultimate example of somebody who has talent but needs to be kept on a leash. Like who needs
But
someone
I
to
mean,
go in
let's
on.
say we take this whole filmography, director, producer, and primary writer, like, because Rambo 2 is like a defining movie of the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
Um, he has made, I would s- four. He's had a big hand. He's had a big hand in four of the most influential action movies ever made: Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens, and Rambo 2. And I
Arguably
think
True Lies.
the I don't think True Lies goes
Oh
anywhere
no.
close to those
Oh
four.
no.
But
Okay. Yeah.
I was gonna say with True Lies and The Abyss, and even Avatar, those movies are they're better than the average bear. They're better than most of the schlock that's coming
Well,
out,
he
right?
invented a lot of like new technology and stuff for Avatar. Like I think you have to. I think regardless of how you feel about Avatar, you have to admit they did some pretty impressive stuff with it on a
hmm
technical
I
level.
think I think something about him as a filmmaker or him as a storyteller is that I think he's able to incorporate women in action movies without making them into Mary Sue's or making the audience roll their eyes and that there's this, woman action star that is throwing around men that are way more competently trained than her and stuff like that.
Okay,
That he can write women in the example of Sarah Connor or Ridley in Aliens or any of these other films that are able to fit in an action movie and not be a damsel in distress and not be a wet towel lecturing the audience on feminism. I think
yeah, I would agree.
he's very good at that.
Like I rewatched Aliens with Fritz the other day, and yeah, like it's uh, she just comes across as like a tough blue collar worker, but it doesn't. The movie doesn't feel preachy. It doesn't feel like, oh, a woman's doing what a man can't, or stuff like that. I mean, that's where we get into. Actually, I hadn't realized he wasn't even involved with Terminator: Fate of the Woke. Um,
I think he had his name removed from it. They've tried to force it. He's like technically considered a producer, I believe.
okay, because isn't like okay, just because like he is like a big feminist, isn't he?
I don't know if he is. I assume that he's probably like an average liberal, but I don't know if he's a screaming feminist. But the other thing is he could be competent enough that being a screaming feminist doesn't drown out his ability to tell a story.
Yeah. So, just a side note, just because people pointed out the chat, other directors who are in the style I said, Scorsese, Ridley Scott, and I would add Francis Ford Coppola to like the list of people who are very talented, but they need someone to put them on a leash,
Hmm.
or they're going to do something retarded.
I think it's fair to say, if you were to say my auteur directors, I think he's definitely one of America's brightest light bulbs.
mhm.
And he's able to make a product that sells huge amounts of profit and be a high quality.
Yeah, like I think regardless of what you think about a lot of his movies, he didn't like cut corners with them. Like he didn't cut any corners. He tried to make the best movie that he thought he could. Whether or not it turned out is like another question, but all of his movies do feel very polished, and very like a lot of TLC was put into them. Um, so just kind of getting back to Terminator One. So something I had always wondered about, and I was talking to Nice Meme Fryer about this, and just some other people, was if the it's just how powerful the Terminator is. Like he's pretty much immune to gunfire. Um, like he seems almost kind of indestructible. And if he was only made out of titanium, like gun should still do something to him, right?
Well, okay, I guess like this is where it always, ever since I was like a little kid, this kind of like
No, I
broke
mean
my
I have a
immersion.
theory for this. I just am throwing that out there to start.
Well, this has always broken my immersion when I'm a little kid. When he like doesn't have any flesh on, like he has all these exposed hinges. You think that if you shot even a 9 millimeter at these exposed hinges, they would at least bend him and do damage. So if he received a lot of gunfire to exposed hinges, that it would basically cripple him or destroy him. I think that that would like very obviously you could tell that if this was real life, and he's clearly not like anywhere near as reinforced as like a main battle tank. So,
But he seems to be able to
but I
take
just assume,
more
I just
punch.
say it's future metal, or yeah, it's just super
So
powerful
my
future metal.
theory as like a balancing is that Terminators cost more to build than like a whole battalion of tanks. That like the
Hmm.
materials and time and energy needed to make one is just extremely high. So, like Skynet could build like 20, 30 tanks or those bigger things for the same price as a Terminator. It's just it's not I think when you see a bunch of them in the second movie, Nice Beam Fryer said that was supposed to be outside of Skynet's headquarters. Which
Hmm.
is why they had so many. So that's kind of the
Yeah,
theory that
from my
I have.
understanding, and it says this in Genesis, is that the events that are depicted over the top of LA are that, and I think it's in the novelization, so that uh the I don't know, the CPU of Skynet is NORAD. It's
Mm-hmm.
in the Cheyenne Mountain complex,
Right.
and that the time machine is in LA. And so that's why they're always sent through the time machine into LA. And so it's the final battle where the Terminator, it's like a Terminator factory sending out Terminators to attack the humans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My balancing act on this, and I guess we could get to that when we get to Terminator Salvation, which is the dumbest movie of all time, is that most of the warfare isn't human on robot. It's actually robot on robot. So that's was my headcanon.
Mm-hmm.
It's from reprogrammed Terminators fighting uh, Terminators.
Right.
I always thought that that's what the main combat would be, but
Yeah, it's I'm not sure. Once again, we don't know like much about the logistics, like how beat up the world is, how many factories Skynet has. I just always figured that Terminators were just very expensive to build, and that was why they're so tough. Compared to like the others, compared to like a tank or something like that. But
Um, to go back to congratulate Jim once again, I think that he kept the film and its lore and its logic a perfect amount of not too much is revealed, not too little is revealed to
mhm,
make it interesting.
yeah. I mean, the Terminator. It's not insane though. Like the plastic explosives they use does damage him. Like they're able to crush him. He's just extremely resilient. I always like the idea of inevitability. I always find that like a really interesting theme. Like the movie It Follows is very much about that. Like kind of the inevitability of death. And I do find that once again really cool with the Terminator is just he is that inevitability. He's unstoppable. He may be slow. He may take a while to get to you, but he's going to get there. And when he gets there, it's not going to be you're not getting away ultimately.
Hmm. Definitely a lot of tension. We talked a little bit about Arnold's performance. What do you think about the other actors' performances in the film?
Good. Laura Hamilton,
Or
uh,
Linda Hamilton?
Linda Hamilton. Sorry, she did a really good job. We'll get to it in a second. Someone was complaining that like Terminator 2 was feminist woke garbage.
So I think Terminator 2 is the greatest example of having a female action hero, even better than Aliens work, where she doesn't come across as like I mean, it doesn't come across as like a woman who magically just girl powers and is more powerful than all the men that are more trained than her. She seems very well trained. She doesn't like get into direct fist fights with men that are stronger and beat them and make you roll your eyes. And the movie itself, when she starts lecturing on some kind of like misandrist rant, John Connor tells her to shut up and she does, which
Also,
is
she's
one of
clearly
my
mentally
favorite scenes in the
unstable and has
series.
severe PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not shitting on the care, but like she clearly has severe PTSD from the experiences
Mm-hmm.
of the first movie. Um, I don't really remember too much about Kyle Reese. Uh,
I think that Michael Biehn, I think he kind of like screwed himself over. I mean, I guess he's in The Rock and in Tombstone, but he's only in outside of those, he's really only in James Cameron's movies when he seems to have been quite a good charismatic leading man. I think he kind of lipped off in Alien 3 and cursed himself forever. But
it,
I mean, I think that he does a very good job in Terminator and a very good job in Aliens.
well,
I
look,
think he's
he was in
actually was a
Scorpion
very
King
charismatic
4, The
action
Quest for
hero.
Power.
I mean, he was in the greatest movie of all time, Megiddo, The Omega Code 2.
Oh, he was in. Oh no, that was Logan's Run. It said Logan's Run. It's like no, Logan's Run, the TV show. Oh, okay. Um,
Yeah, so during the making of Alien 3, I guess he lipped off really hard and was very like
oh
upfront
wait,
with like his character being
wait.
killed
He
off, and
was
I think
Commander.
was blackballed.
He was in Tiberian Sun. Yeah, he was. He was Michael McNeil. Yeah, like the main character of Tiberian Sun, along with James Earl Jones. Okay, based. I had never really realized that before. Sorry, I just nerded out there over Tiberium Sun.
Yeah, I think that he's a very charismatic actor that didn't didn't go very far. I'm assuming he lipped off at other times that, or maybe just something else was there that prevented him from becoming one of the big main action stars after being in Aliens and Terminator
Like he did a
and
lot of
Abyss.
work. Like he's one of those people who's like just in everything.
Hmm.
Like he did. Looking at his IMDb, he did like 3 or 4 movies a year. Um,
Hmm.
so, but no, I thought he was pretty good. I do like that they keep bringing the psychiatrist back.
I mean, I think he's a good character.
No, I'd say like it's really funny, especially in Terminator 3.
Yeah,
He's,
I think Earl Bowen is the
yeah.
actor. I think he's only known for being an actor for playing in those movies. He's always like incredibly bit actor. Other than that,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Silverman.
Yeah, Dr. Silverman.
Yeah, I think Lan. Do you have a positive opinion of Lance Hendrickson as a genre character actor?
I don't have a very. I haven't seen him in, or I'd have to look up what he was even in, other than
Well,
Alien.
he's the secondary cop in this movie. He's in Aliens as well as the robot. He's in Near Dark. He's in Pumpkinhead. Just really infamous. I don't know if infamous is the right word. A really prolific character actor, especially in horror films.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you don't have the same warm feelings towards Lance Hendrickson that I have.
I don't have a strong. Holy shit! This guy's in a lot of movies.
Lance Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the most prolific character actors of the 80s and 90s and 2000s.
Mm-hmm. On Two Best Friends play alien colonial marines. They said they should call this game Lance Hendrickson's Gotta Eat.
That game, I know that I end up referencing Aliens over and over again, but that game is one of the worst games I've ever played, bar none.
Mm-hmm. Wait a
It's
minute.
like
He was in. Oh yeah, he was in Super Mario Bros. The movie. Okay, that's. It's always funny, like where I know people from. Like it says something. It's like, oh, you
the
know me.
Serp be like, oh yeah, he's in Pumpkinhead. Argent be like, oh, the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so I think that largely, so Terminator 1, really good. It made a lot of money, didn't it?
I don't know if it made a lot of money. It had a budget of $6 million in 1984, so I would say that's kind of like not low budget, but like kind of like lower
Lowish.
medium
Okay,
budget.
it made $80 million.
It was a very successful movie for how much it cost to make, but I don't think at the time it was a defining movie of the 80s. I think it was very successful for its budget and became beloved as a movie. But I don't think Terminator really became a defining movie for like the American film industry until Terminator 2. I think that one is the one that kind of like shook the rafters. Are we going to move into Terminator 2
Yep,
now?
let's talk about Terminator 2. I think it's arguably is it the best sequel of all time? I'm trying to think of a better one.
Well, the problem with that is do you count sequels to movies that are already bad but the sequel's good? Or do you
Um,
count that as like just sequels that are good, period?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because I mean, Silence of the Lambs is technically a sequel.
That's true. Okay. That's a good. Okay, well, fair enough. You took the wind out of my sails.
I don't know. I gotta be a contrarian. Obviously, it's a very good movie. It's your favorite of the series.
Hmm. Uh oh, it made a it actually it's interesting
It
because
made a shit ton of
it
money.
made less money relative to its budget, but
Well, that's what ends up happening. That's just inevitable with bigger budget movies.
that's the
They're
I
going to rake in more money total, but it comes at a sunk
That's why
cost
they
of a
let
high
M Night
budget.
Shyamalan continuing to make stuff because his movies are so cheap they make a bunch of money, even though they suck. Yeah, like they always make a profit, um, even if they're garbage.
At the end of the day, that it is a business unless you're right wing.
It's just
Doesn't matter how much money if
a
you're right wing you
profit.
make.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just makes these like gimmick movies that constantly just turn a profit, so they keep letting him make them. I mean, even the Last Airbender made a profit. Okay, so Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Um, I don't know, just amazing, especially for the time. I guess the only thing maybe you might criticize it for is it's a lot more smooth. It's a lot more polished than the first movie.
Um, I just like the first movie, period, more, but I don't think that I can't really think of any fault that the second movie has. I think that the second movie is like a hard 5 stars out of 5 stars, is like a significant movie in the history of science fiction, a significant movie in the history of American filmmaking, a significant movie. It's like across the board in terms of like an action movie. Um, I think, like I said, this is the mode movie for the most popular or favorite movie for almost like every male in America or in the English speaking world, probably since you're in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Um, no, I mean, I just think it succeeds on every level. I feel I'm kind of happy for Arnold that he kind of got a chance to do a bit more acting, and I think it was a really big movie for his career because I think it elevated him a bit out of just kind of being like a joke character.
Hmm. I
Uh,
think that. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was done.
I think that you're saying that this is the best sequel of all time and so on and so forth. I think in terms of taking the same movie and upping the ante, no movie has done it as well as this movie. In that it's the same idea of two people going back in time to prevent somebody something happening in the future, right? But instead of a human and the Terminator, it's the Terminator from the first movie versus probably the most intimidating robot in science fiction,
Yeah,
Nano
yeah.
Machine Son.
Yeah, like also it's just it is just kind of a big sloppy love letter to the fans of the first movie. It's like, you know what? We're going to give you Arnold again, but he's the good guy this time, so you don't have to feel bad about rooting for him. It is kind of like is what they have. But no, it's just I don't know. It's just I think it succeeds on basically every level. The T1000 is just so cool. Like I remember as a kid, just that was my I thought the coolest thing in the movie was just how well they did it, especially given the limitations of the time. Um, like it was honestly just terrifying because it's this robot that's basically indestructible. I mean, if
Hmm.
Arnold the Terminator can't really do anything with it, then like, what are you gonna do?
Also, it's like the ultimate infiltration weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mistake itself for it doesn't look like a human being, right? It can look like anyone.
Yeah, it also just led to a lot of really creative uh things. I do like in this how they kept it really ambiguous as to it made it look like the T1000 was the human who was sent back to save John Connor again
Hmm.
from Arnold, and they just left that up to the end. No, just to like the last minute inside of the movie. Um,
Hmm.
there's just also a lot of I feel like there's a lot of other cool scenes that just Like the whole thing at the mental hospital, I thought was actually really well done. Like
The
just the
irony
sense
is,
of
I'm
like,
gonna say this, I think that it was really well done. I think it's very like I think it's a very like a level-headed makes sense kind of decision to be like, well, she ended up in a mental institution.
hmm
Like I think it just works as like a natural progression for the character. Um I do think that oh, I just because I've seen this movie on TV so many times, every single time it's on TV, it's in the mental institution where they free her. And
hmm
then for whatever reason, when it's on TV, then they have the most trailers or like most commercial breaks possible during that period. So
hmm
it always seems like it lasts much longer to me than it does. I don't know, it's just kind of funny. Um what do you have you seen the theatrical cut versus the special edition?
I think over the years I have.
Which one do you prefer?
I think the special edition. I'd have to go back and look again though.
Okay, so the special edition it has the dream sequence where Kyle Reese reappears to Sarah in her dream and says you need to find John and help him and save him. And then it has the part where Sarah Connor where they reprogram the T100 or T800, sorry, to smash its and Sarah tries to smash its CPU, which I really don't like that scene because it makes the Terminator look incredibly dinky and laughable that bullets wouldn't hurt it. Because it's so easy to pull out a CPU.
All right.
And then it kind of explain it so it does detail that being frozen with liquid nitrogen severely damaged the T1000 because the T1000 can no longer mimic surfaces,
hmm
so its body mimics the surface of whatever it's touching, so its feet can no longer copy anything.
hmm
Um, and so I just always thought that the theatrical cut had better pacing, and I just prefer the idea that the T800 learns independently on its own, rather than it had to be reprogrammed to learn on its own,
So I think
which
that
we'll get into as we go through the movies.
so my okay. So you know what? You make a compelling case. I do like though, and maybe this is contrary to something I said previously. The idea that the T1000 can take damage. So I was talking to Nice Meme Fryer about it. So his contention and the way I interpret it is it can't regenerate. It can just reform. So like the nano machines that make it up can't multiply. So over
Hmm.
time it loses them. Like when it's getting shot and stuff, it's destroying some of them. It
Hmm.
can't die from that, and the liquid nitrogen just did immense damage to them,
Hmm.
which is kind of what I think. Now, something I never really got is why they didn't. So my interpretation is that the T1000 was like so expensive to produce that it was like a one of a kind thing. I know that's not exactly true in the lore, but I was kind of wondering why they didn't just mass produce them in the future because it seems basically unstoppable.
Hmm.
My guess is just it's so expensive. It's like it's like the cost of like 100 normal Terminators or something.
Well, it's explicitly a prototype.
Right. The thing I don't get is what powers it.
I assume that it has to be in each individual nanobot, whatever powers it.
Yeah, that's just the thing that I find the only real question I have because the other Terminators have like micro fission reactors, right?
Hmm.
Um, Also, just Robert Patrick. Just once again, he does such a good job of being a machine, but he's able to kind of be personable while also being a machine in a way
Hmm.
that's just really unnerving. Like I think he does a really good job of capturing the uncanny valley. Um, like somewhere between Arnold in the first movie and like a more normal person.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, like I don't think yeah, I didn't really get that much of a feminist vibe. Sarah Connor is a strong person, but she's also really fucked. Like the events of the first movie very clearly screwed with her. And while she is tough, like it's pretty clear. So I don't mind people being powerful. I just want there to be an explanation. And she kind of became a
Hmm.
crazy survivalist and spent like the last 10 years getting like ready, so I'm okay with her kind of being a badass.
Hmm.
um
Like I said, I think that he can. I don't think that there's any other storyteller, or I guess filmmaker is a better term, that portrays a female action star better, that makes it more grounded and believable than he does.
so something I like, so Abstract is complaining about this, and I think Nice Beam Fryer did. I liked Miles Dyson. It didn't bother me that he was black because a lot of people have complained that he's Black Science Man and that it's affirmative action. um I actually disagree with that. What do you think?
I mean, there are black people that do science. I mean, I under like Hollywood in the 80s to the 2000s would have black people be disproportionately represented in as doctors and scientists and lawyers and so on, because that was their way of being progressive at that time. And now we moved on to the woke age. But I think that the actor does a good job, and there's
Oh
black
no, he does a
scientists.
great
Just
job. Well, I mean,
yeah, so I don't really have any I'm not. I guess like I don't know. I guess like I guess I'm not like actively racist that way. I
well,
guess I just kind of like don't
African
believe in
Americans are
immigration and
Americans. Like
stuff.
they've been in
Yeah.
America since the country was found. It just it doesn't offend me in the same way that like if it had have been, I don't know, like an Indian scientist or like like
Um,
just the way they sometimes will just insert like
I'm just like not actively like racist that way, I guess. Like I definitely avoid movies that have explicit interracial sex for the purpose of having explicit interracial sex, but I don't have any problem with the idea of black actors in American movies. Like 15% of
well
America's black,
yeah, I mean, well,
or
like
10
no,
to
it's like
15% or
I
whatever.
just feel like sometimes people conflate it with like black Vikings or black medieval Europe. I just don't think it's the same thing like at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, I
Because
guess that does offend me where it's like Black Caesar and
making
in
Europe with the picture of
Rome
the black
or
guy on the
Gladiator. Yeah, but like there are modern black scientists in America and the actor did a good job. Like it's fine.
I thought that was a really interesting like inversion of expectations because you have like the guy who made Skynet, you have the guy who's like supposed kind of like the big bad. He's the boogeyman. He's the guy that Sarah Connor has been dreaming about killing for years, and he's just this really like nice family man guy who thinks he's doing the best, what's best for the world.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I mean, in the like there's no implication that like humans did anything wrong in making Skynet. That like there was any malice on people's part. It's just the Skynet goes singularity and then kills humans. It's not like Dune where the humans are the one that are behind it.
yeah, but I like the almost kind of like Shakespearean tragic quality to it,
Hmm.
where like the character's greatest strength is also kind of what brings them down. But I just found it very emotional that he gives his life so that his children can have a future, and really, what more could it be expected of any parent than that?
Hmm.
Um, but no,
I just think it's good. It's good writing to have characters that aren't just evil villains that have um their own motives and that they're not they're like written like actual people. I think that that helps make it be a good movie. And maybe we'll when we get to stuff like the fate of the woke, we'll have to compare.
But
Do
I
you want
like
to? Oh, go ahead.
I just I really appreciate like where Sarah Connor's trying to kill him and she just is struggling because she knows he's not worthy of death, but she has to
Hmm.
prevent the future. I like that it has a certain like moral complexity to it. Also just I think well the music's good in all the films. I think it was probably the best in this movie. Um
Hmm.
it was just really good. Just overall, just a very well polished, paced movie. I don't really have
Hmm.
anything bad to say about Terminator 2. Now, the question is whether we needed a sequel, because I feel like on one level, it pretty much wrapped everything up. They prevented Judgment Day, no fate but what we make for ourselves, stuff like that. And then,
So
no.
I think, well, like I said in the first movie's a good. I don't think it's the best example of closed loop time travel, but the way that time travel works in the first movie and continues into the second movie until they intervene to try and prevent Skynet as this closed loop, and that when they end it and they leave it kind of like open to what will happen next, and I think that it just ends it in a very good way from a science fiction perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and just a conceptual perspective is like, well, they did prevent Skynet. We'll just see what happens next. I think that that works a lot better. Um, do you
What
want to talk about the performances of everybody before you move on to three? Or
I didn't really have anything else. I just thought everybody did a good job. I didn't have too
yeah,
much more to add.
what do you think about Edward Furlong? Do you think he's an annoying kid, or do you think
I
that
mean, he
he's a
was
good
annoying, but
character?
that was kind of the point, wasn't it? That he is
Oh, I
kind
never
of
really found him that
oh,
annoying. I just feel like people now is the now that we have three ones that are shitty and not four, like I guess we'll continue on, but three ones that aren't the best, that I think that that leads to people saying that the series was never good to begin with, and I think that people kind of say that Edward Furlong
I
sucks
mean,
in
he was
this
a
movie
kid
when he
from a
doesn't.
dysfunctional household whose mother has severe PTSD. Like, he's gonna be a little rough around the edges. He
Yeah,
undergoes a lot of development over the course of the film, though.
yeah, I think that he did a very good acting job for somebody who was, what was it, 15, 14.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say this though, that I think that the secret of him succeeding in the movie is through his humanity, is the idea that they can't be inhuman and kill Dyson, that they have to collaborate with Dyson to defeat the Terminator rather than kill him. I think that that was a very important plot point, and has John Connor as a hero, is that he's not cutthroat, that how he defeats the machines is through collaborating with other humans and valuing human life, and ultimately valuing the T-800's life as a surrogate father figure.
Mm-hmm. Also, the ending is just so cool. Like how the Liquid Terminator dies and he's like turns into all the like previous day. It's like it just is kind of a very like feels like he's being dragged to hell by like the souls of all the people who he killed over the course of the movie. It's just a really thematically cool scene
Mm-hmm.
when he's melting.
Is is this like men don't cry when men cry when
Yeah.
the T-800 gets melted?
Uh-huh. It no, it 100% was. I cannot self-terminate. You must lower me into the molten steel. So I find I think you're right. I think from a sci-fi perspective, the first one probably is better as like a hard sci-fi ending. I think this ending was probably better as like a dramatic. I mean, this film's a lot more hopeful. I feel on the
Hmm.
whole. So
I
it
think on the whole, this movie's action scenes are more impressive. I think from like an action movie, this is the best one of the series, and that from a sci-fi perspective, the first one's probably the best one.
so let's get into Terminator 3: The Rise of the Machines. So just to give a one sentence review, unnecessary, but it was a lot of fun.
I will stand by that this is a good movie.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth. I admit, I after I kind of bought it. Like I really loved this the first time, and then I went to say it was shit largely because of Terminator Salvation and where the franchise went. And then I rewatched it, and I'm like, you know what? The fact that it's not as good as like the first two isn't really like that big a deal. Like if it's not as good as like two incredible movies, it
If
is
you go to
just really fun.
McDonald's and have a good time and it's a really good meal at McDonald's, should you hate it because it's not filet mignon?
Yeah, like this movie was once again. I think it screws up the timeline. I think it's kind of unnecessary, but it's a lot of fun. Um, Once again, just with
I
the
think that this movie's really overhated.
oh no, it's overhated. It's like I think no, it's like it's a worthy entry into the Terminator. It kind of redoes moves it back to a closed loop time travel from the more like open loop of the
Of two.
of two. Um, but no, like you have Arnold back. Um, you have John Connor's a little. I find John Connor a little annoying in this movie.
I think that the biggest weakness of the movie isn't that it rehashes Terminator 2. I think that John Connor is not his
Likeable.
own badass character, that he's not charismatic, that he's
Yeah, that's the
whiny
biggest
because he
problem.
doesn't want to be John Connor. I think that that's the weakness of the movie, not that it's a rehash of 2.
I don't really know where that comes from because that was not the impression I got of him at all in Terminator 2.
Oh, that he is a weakling?
Yeah,
Um, I think that they didn't know what to do with him really as a character, and that they missed because that the guy that played him in Terminator 3, um, I think that was like the
Nick
only big
Stahl,
movie he ever did. I think that people had a negative opinion of him, and then it blackmarked him after that, or blackballed him.
kind of like with Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I don't think he did anything really of note. I think it says he on Wikipedia became a TV actor later on, but I think that his whiny portrayal of John Connor is the worst thing in the movie. Do you think it would have been better if Edward Furlong had grown to be John Connor, or do you think that him
So
being
I
a
think
child actor that's short wouldn't have helped?
okay, so I think the issue, and I can't believe I'm going to reference this, is like what Plinkett said when he was talking about a protagonist, wherein if John Connor had have emerged and he was just like completely competent and knew what was going on and was a badass, that it might have made him less relatable to the audience, or it would have made the film like too easy for them to resolve. I don't really think that that's necessarily the case. Um, I don't know. What do you?
I think that you just kind of run into a problem where if you start with this character being a child
Mm-hmm,
and then you make them as an adult, that you have to fundamentally change who that character is when they're an adult to make them a competent adult. And
mm-hmm.
so the way that it's kind of like portrayed in the movie is that now you have the savior of humanity being like a man child, a homeless man child that's a the coward. And it doesn't serve an action movie that well.
Well, it's also just not consistent with his characterization in the second movie.
I guess he isn't really. He's not cow. I mean, I guess he's like a kid, but he's definitely not cowardly in the second movie at all.
No, like we see him mature a lot over the course of the
Yeah,
second film. I think honestly that's really the only big problem. And that kind of did you wind up seeing Dune 2?
I saw Dune 2 in the movie theater, and ugh.
Because I feel like Zanya or whatever her name is was so bad it brought the rest of the film down.
I
Uh
think that that is the best way to say it. She makes Jar Jar Binks charismatic.
no, and I'm just comparing it to this, whereas I think like John Connor brings the rest of the film down.
Hmm.
Because as like the centerpiece, he's just profoundly unlikable compared to like Linda Hamilton or what's his name who played Kyle Reese. He just doesn't have that kind of like charisma of being a main character. Claire Danes is just kind of boring. Like I don't really have any feelings about her
I
one way
think
or
that
another.
she did better than is that the girl that played the
Yeah, the girl.
or
Yeah,
Brewster?
Kate Brewster.
I think she does fine. I think she's actually slightly better than Nick Stahl, but
Yeah, well, she hasn't a reason for being the way she is. Uh,
yeah,
uh,
I think that I mean, it kind of did a Hollywood thing where it puts in a love story just because, even
uh,
like where it doesn't fit the movie really.
I think Christina
I mean, it
Loken
fits in the plot though. Oh, go ahead.
doesn't get enough credit. I think she was really good as the TX.
Oh, I think this is the only movie she ever made that was a big budget movie, wasn't it?
She was in Blood Rain.
That I don't think that counts. I think that
She was in
that
a
proves my
Dungeon
rule.
Siege Tale. What she was in
Oh, maybe.
like a bunch of Uwe Boll movies.
Yeah, but I said big budget major Hollywood productions. I didn't say auteur
No, she was
productions
in
by our
like
great
she was
German.
in like almost nothing. I think she was primarily a model.
I think
Um,
that she was in the movie because she looks attractive.
yeah, I thought she did a pretty good job though as the TX. I don't.
Yeah, I think we were talking about the TX and I was like the TX is like significantly weaker than the T800 because it gets like crushed and destroyed multiple times when the T100 takes the same damage.
Mhm.
And then you're like, well, she is a woman.
But like I thought that was kind of fun to have a bit of
Hmm.
a take on it, like have a female. Once again, I don't feel like that's like affirmative action. I just feel like they did something a little different, and
Well,
I'm okay with that.
why wouldn't they have why wouldn't a moral machine make female robots that kill humans?
Yeah. Um. Also, eye candy. Uh,
Yeah, I
this
kind
is
of
a
think that
movie
that's the
for.
main reason she's in.
I mean, like this is a movie that's. And I know this is like a weird thing nowadays. This is a movie that's targeted for like males.
Oh,
So
lordy.
they decided to put some stuff like that in. But no, I thought it was kind of cool that she was a mixture of the previous two. Like she had some of the nano machines, but also some of the more conventional Terminator body. I thought that was pretty cool. We had a lot of just really fun action scenes in this. Like the highway chase scene with was really good. Um, some of the scenes towards the end of the movie where like you had the early drones was kind of cool.
Hmm.
What else was I just remember there being a lot of just fun scenes in this movie. You watched it more recently though, so like what else sticks out to you?
So the car chase scene is incredibly impressive from a filmmaking standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
In the destruction that occurs and having a car chase scene with a semi, or was it was it a semi or was it a crane truck? I think it
I
was a
think it was
crane
a
truck.
crane truck.
But having a car chase scene with a big rig is very impressive, and
Mm-hmm.
showing so much damage occurring. It's a very impressive action scene. I just think that Arnold as a character is very like Arnold's T800 in this movie is a very good character. I think he does a very good thing in the like he's very good acting in it and he has a very good charismatic presence. Um I will say this, and my wife kind of commented on this, is like um when she was watching me watch Terminator Salvation, she's like, "Where is the Terminator?" Because she doesn't like this type of movie. That to the audience, to the mainstream public, the Terminator isn't a series of robots. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator, and I think that
Mhm.
that's kind of a problem with the series going forward.
Right.
Is that first of all, it doesn't make sense if they all look like Arnold. Wouldn't everybody know what they look like?
Hmm.
Um, and then yeah, they after Arnold gets too old and becomes the governor and comes back, it would make a lot more sense to have somebody who's still physically intimidating, but is also a robot. And it definitely makes sense in the plot of the series to have
Hmm.
other humanoid robots.
Um, yeah, it's I don't have a ton to say about it. I do love the scene at the end. I think my okay, the most awesomely cheesy part of this movie is where Arnold rips out the like microfusion reactor, goes, "You are terminated," and then just stabs her with it, and
If you
then
don't like that,
explodes.
you are a
You have no
curmudgeon.
soul.
You have no soul, and you don't know what fun is.
Or like when she gets like they turn the super magnet on. Like that was cool. She has like the laser, the plasma gun, and then the flamethrower. I don't know. It's like I said,
Like
it's
this is a very fun, good movie to watch. It's not a 5 star movie. It's not a 5 out of 5 star movie, but it's a fun, entertaining movie.
it reminds me a bit of like Attack of the Clones.
You think that if this was the last Terminator movie, do you think that Terminator would be incredibly positively viewed
Yes.
to this day?
I think
Because
people
I feel the
would
movies after this very negatively hurt its image.
I feel like people like this. They said it wasn't nearly as good as the first two, but I remember a lot of people were just happy to see Arnold one more time. Like to see him
Mhm.
out, to see him kicking ass, to see some more like time traveling Terminator hijinks. You could
Mhm.
also argue this kind of completes John Connor's journey that wasn't really necessary to be completed. It kind of it resolves the problems that it created, I guess. Um, but I don't know. I don't have a ton to say about this one. I just think it is very it's unfair. It's because you know what I think it is. It's because people like see it as this is where it started to go downhill. This is where
Yes.
it jumped the shark.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about the movie is that if this was if this was the last movie, it like the ending perfectly cuts it off in the same way that Terminator 2 does. There's not really like the nukes go off, the Judgment Day happened, John Connor fulfills his role, the T-800 fulfills his role in being a father figure and protecting him. And I think that they could have ended the series off here well enough, and it would have been fine. Now we're on to pig shit, though.
I admit I only watched this movie once when it was in theaters, and it made me really angry. I couldn't tell what was going on. I know that's a complaint I have a lot, guys, that I can't tell what the fuck was going on. I couldn't tell what was going on for large portions of this movie. Um,
Okay, so this movie um has two of the largest, it not only one, but two foundationally um like two foundationally movie breaking plot holes. To the point where I feel like the writers of this movie were so stupid that they didn't have object permanence.
uh huh.
Okay, so first of all, they capture Kyle Reese and
Mm-hmm.
don't kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, I guess you could say it's a scaffolding thing, but like Why do they just capture him? Why don't they kill him? Can't they make a Terminator Kyle Reese to even if they have to convince him? Why don't they just immediately kill him if they know he's Kyle Reese? Why do they wait for John Connor? Like if John Connor's going there or is compelled to go there because he's his dad, why
Do they know that
it's
Kyle
like
Reese
all
is
the
his dad, or did they just know he's his right
it
hand man?
definitively knows. It definitively knows. So you haven't seen this since it came out in
No.
2008. Okay, so I'll go through the whole story.
Is it understandable that I didn't want to rewatch it?
No, it is one of the. I, this movie is, you know how like it's like has the brain level of like Teletubbies.
Is this like
Like
the Transformers 2 level of retarded?
no, Transformers 2 is far more competently made.
That's not a good sign.
This is the most retarded film I've ever seen.
And you watch like schlock I've never even heard of. Like the most.
This is coming from somebody who watches like SOVs and is like a big or shot on video fan and oh, possum reviews. Why don't I
You
just go
watch
watch
like
this
the
movie?
low budget, like obscure Japanese monster movies no one's ever heard of.
This is the dumbest. Okay, so the movie starts out with Hella Bonham Carter convincing Sam Worthington's character, who's on death row, to give up his body once he dies to scientific experimentation after he's assassinated into death row immediately before the events of Terminator 3 happen. And so apparently the company Cyberdyne Systems, which I guess continue to develop Skynet, because do they? I don't even know if they explicitly say that Cyberdyne still developed it or it was just a different whatever. Like let's just ignore that. But so Cyberdyne Systems apparently has some kind of medical arm and takes Sam Worthington's body. And so Sam Worthington, after being executed, wakes up in a post-apocalyptic, post-nuclear war world where of Terminator 3, where the nuclear war did happen.
Do you think they just saw it 28 days later and they thought that was a cool way to open a movie?
Yes, except for that's not how the movie opens. It like opens that way an hour in. I'm chronologically saying it like it's a story because like they don't reveal because the way that the movie opens up. So the way that the movie technically opens up is that Christian Bale is like a second in command on a this scene in itself is absolutely fucking retarded how they open the movie. Do you want me to like tell you how stupid this is or chronologically tell the story?
Let's just try to go chronologically just to bring some sort of order to this retardation.
Okay, so Sam Worthington then wakes up. He doesn't know what happened, and he miraculously went to sleep during being put to death and wakes up in a post-apocalyptic wasteland in a destroyed LA. He almost gets killed by a T-600, which is just so like this is part of the thing when you're like talking about the Terminators before. So the T-600 is just like the naked, just metal Terminator without flesh over it in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the cover that just has like a minigun. So anyway, he almost gets killed because he doesn't know what he's doing because he's just walking around post-apocalyptic nuked LA. And then Kyle Reese saves him out of nowhere and they form a friendship because Kyle Reese saves him. Kyle Reese is an orphan and he has an orphan sidekick who's a mute black girl that's like younger than him. But anyway, they're both orphans. Sam Marcus, it's Marcus is the last name. Marcus Wright. So Marcus Wright, the Sam Worthington character, becomes a surrogate father for Kyle Reese. He saves Kyle Reese as well. Kyle Reese, him and the other kid plan to travel across the country, get a car, and Sam Worthington is looking for his brother because he's like he doesn't understand what's happened. He's disoriented. He wants to meet up with his family. In the process, a Terminator discovers Sam Worthington and Kyle Reese traveling across the country, and they send out. They're captured and taken to the headquarters of Skynet, which is in San Francisco, apparently, where he's put into a death camp. When they're put into a death camp, the computer immediately recognizes Kyle Reese, or Skynet immediately recognizes Kyle Reese and lures John Connor to the headquarters of Skynet, which is in San Francisco. At the same time, John Connor is like literally a sergeant. Oh, this is so stupid. I don't even know how to explain this. So I'm just going to just explain how it's stupid at the same time while I explain the plot.
Sure.
So objectively, Skynet is losing in a conventional war in humanity where it only has a single outpost of San Francisco, and that there's humanity surrounding it, and it conventional war because the creators of the series don't understand how warfare works. So Skynet only has San Francisco basically, and that there's a human base in Southern California that's entrenched directly facing with like literal front lines and stuff, like in a conventional war, that's fighting with human soldiers against Skynet. And John Connor is in the human resistance, but he has no real power, and he's basically just a sergeant. But he independently, despite being in the chain of command, makes radio addresses to people saying that he is the prophesized hero of all of humanity, in some kind of messianic radio addresses to people, which the military allows him, which he kind of like would reveal where he is to Skynet and share a bunch of information about Kyle Reese's existence and things like that. And is not silenced despite literally only being a sergeant or like a second lieutenant or something.
I thought he was supposed to be the like leader of the resistance.
Yeah, like Argent, this movie's fucking retarded.
Okay.
Like this movie is dumber than newborn babies. This movie is like unbelievably stupid. So he's like a sergeant or something, and he's in like he apparently doesn't get court-martialed for having these speeches on the radio to the rest of like humanity, and the rest of humanity is loyal to him but not loyal to the entire infrastructure of the organized united human resistance of, you know, China, Russia, United States, every other country in the world working together to defeat Skynet. And he's like a sergeant or a second lieutenant or something. So at the beginning of the movie, he attacks a Skynet research facility and takes a direct hit by a tactical nuclear weapon and survives, basically, and then becomes the main commander of his base because the guy that was above him giving him orders dies in the nuclear attack. And when they do the raid on the base, they discover that that there is a sound frequency that Skynet created to shut off its own robots instantly and paralyze them and make it so they can't resist. And so John Connor is like this lowly lieutenant or whatever that's in charge of this base surrounding the San Francisco headquarters of Skynet, tells the rest of the human resistance to use this sound wave that Skynet recorded to cripple itself to use on Skynet, that was miraculously discovered by people by Skynet, and that Skynet has nuclear weapons readily available to defend its own bases, but doesn't use them in a conventional war against humans, with conventional front lines against humans where it's clearly outnumbered. It doesn't use nuclear weapons. So anyway, John Connor thinks that this uh, sound wave that was created by Skynet to cripple its own machines is sus, and the rest of humanity doesn't. And then the rest of the human resistance tries to attack Skynet all at the same time and uses the sound waves against them, and then gets their asses kicked because it reveals where all their positions are, and then Skynet kills them. And then John Connor is the only one that doesn't, so he's the only one that survives, and he becomes the leader of humanity. John Connor does a secret raid by himself into Skynet space, where he sees that Skynet has its whole entire like computer infrastructure in its factory can be run by humans directly, and it has things like monitors and keypads that can be used by humans when it's a computer that doesn't need a human body and can operate autonomously without input from an external source. But anyway, it has keypads. He does a raid to find Kyle Reese and save him in the base. He stumbled because I forgot earlier. Sam Worthington's character goes to John Connor's base and discovers he's a Terminator. And he's like, "I can't be a Terminator. I'm a person. I'm good."
But
And then he escapes.
But isn't he not a Terminator? Because isn't he like
He's a
a
robot.
cyborg?
So he's a cyborg that is independent of Skynet, that has no malice towards humans and thinks it's a human and has the original brain. So he's like the brain of a human contained within a Terminator body.
So he's like the opposite of a Terminator.
Yeah, he's like the opposite of a Terminator, but he also has a human heart. And so this gets very important later. So, um, both Sam Worthington's character and John Connor's character simultaneously sneak in to the main base for Skynet and try to rescue Kyle Reese, because Kyle Reese is John Connor's father, and he assumes that if his dad dies, then he'll not exist.
Mm-hmm.
And conversely, Sam Worthington's trying to save him because he's loyal to him, because he's Kyle Reese's surrogate father. So
Right.
anyway, they go into the base. They rescue Kyle Reese. Sam Worthington's character gets into a fist fight with a T-800. The T-800 punches Sam Worthington's character directly into the heart and kills him because he has a human heart. And then the T-800 stabs John Connor through the chest and does irreparable damage to his heart. And then, despite his heart being destroyed, they transplant the destroyed heart into John Connor at the end of the movie from Sam Worthington's character. Sam Worthington, apparently, despite being killed through his heart being destroyed by a Terminator, it miraculously saves itself in the movie not being able to pass the mirror test, and forgets that his heart was destroyed in a direct fist fight where a Terminator destroyed it, and he canonically died. He canonically undies and his heart works again. And then Sam Worthington voluntarily commits suicide so that his heart can be transferred into the chest of John Connor. And then the movie ends.
But if he was a Terminator, then he would have a battery, right?
Yeah, the human heart is able to power the electronics of the Terminator somehow.
Okay.
Okay, so this movie has two foundational plot holes. One, his heart is destroyed, and then 10 minutes later they forget that his heart wasn't destroyed, and then he willingly commits suicide so his heart can be transplanted into John Connor. And that two, Skynet knows who Kyle Reese is, captures him, uses him as bait, and doesn't kill him.
Right.
This is the dumbest movie I've ever seen. This has less storytelling ability than like Ed Wood or like most porn movies.
It also just like I just remember it being really incoherent and boring, and like a lot of wasn't there a lot of shaky cam?
I don't know if there is. When I watched it on my DVD that I bought after the movie came out, um, I was able to follow it. So maybe they changed it on the DVD release. I think that people said it was dark, but it seemed pretty watchable when I watched it. Maybe shaky cam isn't as difficult to watch on a screen at your house on a TV than it is in a movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know anything else to say other than saying that this movie is like foundationally retarded on every single level. Um, like the human beings are fighting Skynet in a conventional war where Skynet seems surrounded and its like main base is destroyed. But it continues
So
to
sorry. Are
fight.
there even stakes then? I mean, like the
The
war's
movie
over.
doesn't understand how war works. The movie doesn't understand what
So
supply lines are and
does it
stuff like that.
matter like at all? Like if John Connor
Well,
dies, like wouldn't they still win the war?
John Connor is just, like the movie implies that humans are losing because reasons, but everything that's shown on screen would imply that humans are definitively winning.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie just has humans losing because that's the narrative, but because the movie has the understanding of a war of warfare that like a 5-year-old child, it doesn't understand like if Skynet is surrounded on all sides and it has its main headquarters at San Francisco, then wouldn't it be losing if it was surrounded on all sides
Mm-hmm.
in a conventional war? Also, Skynet defends the base where it had the audio recording that apparently allegedly shut down the machines with a tactical nuclear weapon, which John Connor looks directly into and doesn't go blind, and is like sucked up in
Mushroom
the
cloud.
waves and doesn't. He's sucked up in the mushroom cloud and doesn't die of radiation poisoning and stuff like that, right? Um, but if it would use tactical weapons to defend this base, why wouldn't it use tactical nuclear weapons, that is, against John Connor's actual base? Why wouldn't it just use nuclear weapons against John Connor if it knows that John Connor is in a conventional base having radio transmissions?
Dude, I don't know. It just sounds like shit. I
Dude,
don't
it's just
know.
fucking retarded.
It's just really dumb. Okay, so let's just move on then.
Also, this movie doesn't have laser gun or laser rifles or plasma rifles, and that sucks because that was cool in the all the other movies, the depictions of the future war.
Okay, so now we have Terminator Genisys, which is
Terminator Genisys is the best of the last three, but that's not saying much.
so. And I was saying this before. Okay, so you have something like the Star Wars, you have something like the Last Jedi, which is specifically made to shit on and humiliate fans of the franchise. You also have that in the movie after this one that is made specifically just to shit on everybody and everything that the original stood for. Then you'll have something like Dawn of War, Shadow of War, which is really, really fucking stupid. It doesn't like it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's goofy. It's dumb, but it was clearly made by people who like the source material. Shadow of War was clearly made by people who love Lord of the Rings, and they what they made was retarded, but it didn't shit on it. And I kind of feel that way about Terminator Genisys.
Yeah, Terminator Genisys is has no need to exist. It's kind of a bland action movie, but the creators of it like Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I mean, should we? The plot is basically a remake of Terminator 1, but Kyle Reese finds out that there is a surrogate father Terminator for Sarah Connor.
Yeah,
That's kind of the
I
plot.
don't really remember too much about it. Sorry, I hadn't
Oh,
watched
okay. So the
I didn't watch this one since it was released.
Okay, so
Later.
the movie starts out as a remake of Terminator 1, but then Kyle Reese goes back in time, protects Sarah Connor from a Terminator sent back to kill her, but it turns out that an earlier Terminator was sent back to protect her when she was a child, just like John Connor in the second movie, and that now the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator is now her surrogate father that's there to protect her. Um, Her and Kyle Reese
I kind of
then
like that actually. I thought that was kind of cool.
well, I think that this, like Terminator 3, I think that the biggest problem with this movie is Emilia Clarke.
Mm-hmm.
She's incredibly annoying as the Sarah Connor character.
Yeah.
Um, anyway,
Arnold didn't feel
so
like okay. Here's the other thing. Unlike the next movie, I didn't get the impression that Arnold was wishing that someone would put him out of his misery. Because
mhm.
like in Fate of the
I think
Woke,
Arnold does a good job as an actor in this movie.
like he's clearly enjoying himself. In Fate of the Woke, it feels like he just wants someone to shoot him, like so he could get out of making this fucking movie. Um, yeah, I don't have it. It just pays kind of an homage to all the stuff that happened in the previous couple movies. Just kind of mixes the lore together, remixes it a bit. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's just kind of a big sloppy love letter to the franchise. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of takes the idea of the Terminator being a surrogate father and runs with it from the second movie.
mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, what ends up happening is that the John Connor character ends up being corrupted by the Terminators and turned into a Terminator monster himself and tries to kill the Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor characters, and then Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese are like meant to fall in love by destiny, but Sarah Connor doesn't want that to be her destiny and like resents him for the idea that she's supposed to fall in love with him, and then ends up falling in love with him because it's a Hollywood movie.
Yeah. I don't really have anything else to add. I might of the last three, this is the only one I might watch again at some point.
This is definitely, I mean, that's like being the tallest midget, but it is the best of the final three movies. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's good, but I don't have the heart to actively hate it. Like this movie does have heart, I think.
It was made by somewhat incompetent people, but with good intentions.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing with Terminator Salvation,
Oh,
there's not
son of
really
a
anything they
bitch!
could do
This
with that
dude
movie
made
or
Thor
Terminator
Dark
5.
World. Sorry, that was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
That surprised me none at all.
Oh, Thor Dark World is so bad. Um, okay, so I just kind of wanted to get through Genesis. I didn't have a ton to say other than it was dumb but fun, and I remember being pleasantly surprised by it after having watched Salvation. Now we get to Terminator Dark Fate, aka Terminator Fate of the Woke. This movie, honestly, I think this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Um, I don't necessarily mean that from like a technical perspective, but just in terms of how much it irritates. I just found it very
I
abrasively
think that the
bad.
movie might be from a technical like filmmaking like not your heart isn't in it, but like hired gun perspective. It's probably better made than Genesis.
I don't know,
Like
but this just felt abrasively
like a
shitty to
cinema.
me.
Well, no, I mean in terms of like the ability to point the camera and like the
I
editing.
know, but that almost makes it worse because if it was like really incompetently made, it might be funny.
This movie like is not good. It's just not good. Well, okay, so you have three women that are bickering, and like that's the idea of the movie is that they need to be the heroes to put men in their place for
For the crime
reasons.
of creating Skynet, I
But
guess.
for the crime of building industrial
They need a
civilization.
wise Latina woman. Or I don't think there's a
Oh
wise
yeah,
Latina.
this movie also explicitly says that America should have unlimited illegal immigration, doesn't it? I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot because I called it Feminator. I think now it's like Feminator 6. Uh, Amnesty Now is my thing instead of Fate of the Woke. I called it Amnesty Now.
So let's see, what is this? Sarah hunts and kills Skynet's remaining Terminators to prevent Judgment Day and forestall the coming conflict. Doesn't John Connor get killed in the opening scene in this?
I don't know if it's the opening scene because the opening scene is like redoing Terminator but in Mexico. No, it might actually. I think it is the opening scene, isn't
No,
it? That
doesn't
he
John
just
Connor
dies.
literally get killed in the first 5 minutes of it?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
CGI child,
Does that
Edward
just
Furlong.
summarize the entire movie? Like, I was actually shocked when I saw it. Um, like how bad that was, and I was just like, they just didn't care. They literally just killed the franchise in
Well,
front
that's
of
like
your
to
eyes.
directly insult you,
Uh huh. It's like move
but
over. It's girl power now.
I like how the Mexican girl that's supposed to be the main character, um, I guess she's Colombian. She's not Mexican, so she looks much more. She looks a lot less Caucasian than most Mexicans, but Natalia Reyes is her real life name. So there's no reason why she would be capable enough to have a to be the leader of resistance against these robots that are trying to wipe us out. There's no there. She's like a high school graduate who works on an assembly line that has no experience in combat and
Yeah,
has
but
no
like,
experience
okay,
in like
but if Trump had have
technology.
let her come into the country, um, then we wouldn't have had a nuclear apocalypse. So we have to let Mexico unlimited immigration because one of them might be a
A Mexican female high school graduate with no military experience and no experience in like programming or computer science is the savior of humanity because say it with me, girl
girl power.
power, girl power.
It's not even Sarah Connor. And then we have Mackenzie Davis as like not as Terminator, but like a super soldier. I don't like mind
I guess
her
this
as an
is where it finally
actress.
does become like cyberpunk definitively.
Like I don't mind her as an actress in general, but she really didn't add anything. Like they're just don't they just bicker the whole movie? Like isn't it just
Well, there's three female action heroes, which are all very unconvincing in a way that, like as I said this before, I think you can have a female action star and she can be convincing, but she has to be written right. But each of them is very unconvincing and very unintimidating, and seems like they would be easily defeated by, you know,
well they're
an
just very
overweight
like
60-year-old
catty
man.
and unserious and
None of them have charisma or an intimidating, and they're all constantly fighting and bickering in the most like because it's like even in a movie, this is supposed to, of course, like there's no independent, like financially successful feminist action movies, right? But so they have to kidnap Terminator and as their surrogate and like rewrite it
yeah,
as
but
a feminist action
what
movie.
about the Hunger
But
Games?
like, oh, I
No,
guess maybe you're
it's
right
not.
there.
It's no. It just has a female protagonist. It's not really
Oh,
specifically. I was just being sarcastic.
but I mean, they have to kidnap the Terminator and make it that way. But even in this like showcase of a female action star, the female action star in the movies is like the entire movie is them bickering and being unable to work together and being incredibly annoying.
I remember back when I was playing
Most unflattering portrayal possible.
some like social justice warrior games. Jolly Crocodile would always write in the live chat inane prattling. Just const like every 5 minutes he just put inane prattling. I don't know. They just Do you get the impression that none of the people involved in this film wanted to be there?
I get the impression that this movie was created for purely political reasons during
Not
Trump's
even for
presidency.
money. Like, you could argue like Genesis was just made and Salvation were just made to make a buck. This
Hmm.
was not made to like make money. Because if this was intended to make money, it would have been significantly better.
Well, Genesis made a lot more money than this. I think Genesis, not counting inflation, made more money than Salvation, though. But this movie made significantly less money. And when Genesis came out, there wasn't that many I don't think it was advertised as hard as this
No,
movie.
this one was
This movie
way
was
heavier.
advertised really fucking hard too. I remember that. Like Genesis just sort of came out and then I saw it at Walmart for $5 and watched it. This movie was like advertised to the hilt.
Um, like, so does this just have a different continuity than the previous movie?
So I think like so I think the continuity for the Terminator movies is that 1 through 4 in the same continuity. Terminator Genisys is a remake, and Terminator Dark Fate
Is
is
Terminator
Terminator 1 and
Genesis a
2 are
soft reboot?
no, it's a remake.
Oh, okay, it's just a remake. Okay.
Yeah, then Terminator Dark Fate is Terminator 1 and 2 are canon, and then this is Terminator 3.
I think the real reason this was made was just to cock Arnold and to just ritually humiliate him as a result
Yeah,
of his indiscretions. It as just like a sign, like here is the symbol of American masculinity who played like the most badass character in history. We're just gonna ritually humiliate him on screen for 2.5 hours as a way of uh
even with that included, Arnold is the male character, is more charismatic, outacts the other characters, and is the only reason to watch it still, even after being extremely, literally cucked, literally raising
his wife's
some
kids.
Mexican, his Mexican wife's kid. His wife never gets upset that she doesn't have sex with him because, um, because I don't know how the marital debt doesn't work two ways. So he never has sex with her, and she never has any questions about it, and he just raises a kid,
So
or
she
he raises
doesn't
his
want to.
wife's
So
kid
so
without
it's a
any
woman who
questions.
doesn't want to have sex with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes, it's a woman that wouldn't have sex and wouldn't question um a man willing to raise her child that won't have sex with her. That wouldn't be um sus.
Okay,
Like
there's two moments that I think
a single
summarize
mom
this.
wouldn't be sus of somebody that doesn't want to have sex with her but wants to raise her kid.
There's two things about this that I think summarize the entire film. John Connor getting shot 2 seconds into the movie, and Arnold going, "I won't be back."
Oh, I forgot the I won't be
Just
back
the
thing.
defeated, pathetic. Like Arnold just looks like this whole movie that he just wants someone to put a bullet in his head and just end it, and yet he gives the most committed performance.
Oh, I think like his performance is like way better than every other character
And he
combined.
wants to like someone to shoot him. Like, don't the women not do anything and he winds up doing everything? I feel like that
Yes. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, when marketing is taken into perspective, this is one of the biggest bombs in history, if you count
because they
marketing.
really aggressively marketed this. Wait, what's Legion?
Oh, so the idea is that singularity is inevitable, so Legion comes as the so
Instead of
basically
Skynet?
yeah, so basically what happens is that there's multiple Terminators that were sent to kill John Connor. And then the events of Terminator 2 actually defeat Skynet. So a separate computer system called Legion develops Singularity and tries to wipe out humanity outside of Skynet, and it's called Legion.
I mean, I don't think the idea of like having another AI fight Skynet is like the worst idea in the world. but
Well, they don't fight Skynet. It's just complete. It's Skynet, but we renamed it so it's against the Mexican girl.
mhm. You know what? You know what? Okay. You know, if they had have gone further, like if they had have given Legion Donald Trump's voice, like that would
I
have been
think that would
cute.
have made it good though.
No, that would have been so much better. Like if they hadn't done something like that. Um, I don't know. It's just. Does this feel like a product of a movie?
No, because a product of a movie is where they make it, but there's no like love to it. So like
Oh no, there's
I
just
don't know,
hate to
like
this.
Pirates of the Caribbean like 4 and 5 are very like producty. Or
I
like the
think the
Jurassic
Force
World
Awakens
movies are
is
very
like a.
producty.
I think
Yeah,
Force
the
Awakens.
first of the Star Wars sequel series, The Force Awakens, is very producty.
Hmm.
This doesn't feel producty. This feels like a ritualistic humiliation of American men.
Hmm.
Also, like I said that Linda Hamilton did a good job in the Terminator 2 and Terminator
Yeah.
1. And then in this movie,
Oh, she's awful.
oh, she is the most unlikable type of woman for a genre which is sold to men. You're going to make your main character a older woman who lectures men for existing in a genre in a series that is directly targeted for men. That is a big
Didn't
brained
they
idea right there.
specifically tell men not to see this movie?
Oh, I don't know if they did. They did that with the Charlie's Angels remake recently. That they
Because was
said
that the one where they
we
said
don't
this
want
isn't,
men to see
and
this.
then they complained that no men saw it and it failed? I think that was the one where it lost a fuck ton of money, and then they complained that like white males didn't watch it.
Hmm.
You know what's sad? How people like were trying to twist that like Top Gun Maverick was based. Do you remember that, Cope?
Um, I don't. Do you dislike Top Gun Maverick? I
No,
didn't
it's
know
just
that
the
it was
idea
like
that it was
bad.
like based is I just.
I don't know. I don't think it was like explicitly like right wing or anything. It was just a movie about a fighter pilot.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying like it just shows where we're kind of at the society we live in. Okay, here is the question. I'm gonna post this to the people in the chat. Which movie shits on the series more? Joker 2 or Terminator Fate of the Woke? I
Did anybody
actually
see Joker 2?
I saw Joker 2.
Do you think that you can go to heaven now? Do you think that you're no longer part of the elect?
Well, do you mean do I get to bypass purgatory because I went through the pain?
No, that you like demonstrated that you're not part of the elect because God allowed you to see it.
Well, God, well, no, I think it was a I think it was like doing my entire
Oh, you
time in
think it's the
purgatory on
opposite?
Earth.
You did
Yeah,
all your yeah, okay.
watching Joker 2. I think this is worse than Joker 2. Or they're bad and different. This was more abrasively bad than Joker 2. Joker 2 is more boring. Although I remember this movie being really boring.
This
Was
movie is very, very boring.
um the only thing I remember that was sort of interesting was like the set piece for the final battle, like where they're in the hydro plant.
No, that was really boring.
Oh, it was? Okay. I
That was like excruciatingly
like
boring.
I,
That was
I
where like they get sucked into the turbines underwater in a car that's collapsing and they swim against it.
I think
Like the
I think I saw this like once. No, I didn't see this that long ago. I saw this like 3 years ago with
Can you see it
Abstract.
theatrically?
No, I
Yeah.
didn't see this. I refuse to see it theatrically. This is the
Oh.
only one I. No, I did not see this theatrically. It looked too shit. I watched it with Abstract and like we were dying. Like I think I actually just stopped paying attention to this film like halfway through because I was so bored. Um, you know what's sad? The Arnold ritual humiliation bits were more interesting than the rest of the film, so I was actually almost looking forward to them.
Yeah, it was.
Are they making another one, or are they gonna let this franchise die?
I think that this is the end of the series. Because the other thing is, like my wife said, where's the Terminator when she was watching me watch it? Um, yeah, it's just kind of because I don't think that there's any will to watch any of them without Arnold
Okay, that's
Schwarzenegger, and
interesting.
I think he's too old. What were you saying?
Oh, I brought up
I
on
think they
screen.
announced that they're going to make them, but that doesn't mean that they're actually making them.
Okay, just there. Okay, so there's different timelines. Okay, so Terminator Genisys is completely its own.
It's a remake. It's its
Dark
own
Fate is a
timeline.
direct
The first
sequel.
four are their own thing, are their own thing.
Sarah Connor Chronicles and Dark Fate take place in their own timelines that directly
Hmm.
followed Terminator 2, and the others are their own. So I don't know. I feel like Dark Fate just hopefully put a bullet in this. I mean, I guess we have Terminator Zero, and we'll see if Terminator Zero gets a season two. I hope not, but okay. James Cameron revealed another series reboot was in discussion. Oh no, an entirely new count new cast. It's gonna be like some like lesbian Latina or something.
They
Um,
need to let it die as the will of God.
Schwarzenegger said he would not come back because the last few
Hmm.
films sucked. I can't really blame him for that one. Um, a Terminator reboot. Hamilton said she was not coming back. Uh, yeah, it's time to let to quote Kylo Ren. It's time to let old things die. Now I know a lot of people thought Terminator Zero was good or like okay. I just thought it was like a big part of it was just that humans are the real monsters. Um, and that like the machines are just trying to defend themselves against evil humans. Like there's a scene where they lynch a Terminator or they lynch a robot. Like some like
Hmm.
Japanese rednecks like hang it like a like the KKK.
Hmm.
Uh so I wonder if the Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles were any good. I've always kind of wondered about that.
Everybody says they are, but I've never seen it.
Okay, like I might watch that at some point. I it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound bad. It doesn't it's probably not good, but it's probably not bad. But okay, so yeah, I think that about covers it. Are there any good games in the franchise?
So there is one that I plan to play, Terminator Resistance, which is considered by fans to be a very good
Is
game.
that
There
when did
were,
that come out?
I think around the in between Genesis and let me look it up. It might be newer. It might be post. Yeah, it came out at the same time that Fate of the Woke came out.
Okay, Resistance. It is not based on a movie.
It I think only Terminator 1 is canon in it. It's like a prequel to Terminator 1 from my understanding.
Okay. Reviews are like not good.
Well, the reviews aren't good, but the I think it was a medium budget game that was like negatively reviewed by the
Okay.
press, and that because it seems that fans are very positive of it.
Okay. Oh, we have
Well,
a
during the election stream, I said that I was interested in playing it, and I remember
yeah.
the fans saying to play it.
No, I've heard. Yeah, it's probably okay. Most of them were
Um,
seem pretty bad though.
there are earlier ones like Doom era games that are pretty good,
Hmm.
like Future Shock and Skynet. I think are pretty good.
Right.
But then other than that, it's not. I don't think there's anything to write home with stuff like Rise of the
I
Machines,
mean,
Terminator
the
3,
Sega
and
CD one at least has a
Dawn of
good
Fate.
soundtrack.
Yeah, I don't think the side scroller ones are like horrifically bad, but they're not.
The
They're
ones made by
obviously not
LGN are
like,
pretty bad.
oh, I mean, they're not like, I'm trying to think of, they're not like ET bad or something like that. They're just bland, like 8 and 16-bit games, I think.
I don't.
They're
The
bland.
AVGN did an episode on them. And they seemed really bad, but
Oh, I don't know.
uh,
I think to me, they just seem like bland games of that era. I
okay.
think Rise of the Machines and like War of the Machines and shit like that is like active, like Redemption is like actively terrible.
Uh huh. So you had said, and I think we've covered most of it, to end on what you would do if you were given an unlimited budget and told to make a Terminator game. I mean, movie.
Okay, so if I had the power, what I would do is I would make like a quasi prequel to the first movie, where it would be the term basically the Skynet does defeat humanity. The Terminators do defeat humanity through infiltration, but what ends up happening is like in the second movie and actually in Dark Fate is that the Terminators once humanity are defeated that they're not chained to Skynet and that they independently decide outside of Skynet to resurrect humanity and that the initial information that provides with John Connor to destroy the Skynet is provided by rogue Terminators after humanity is extinct. That's kind of my idea. To be that there's good Terminators going back in time to save humanity, to give John Connor the information to do so, and that I wouldn't have a closed loop time travel. I would rather just have like just kind of like some kind of like cross like net time travel. I don't know. Do you have any idea of what your idea would be?
Um, Maybe what they were trying to do with Salvation, like just continue from Terminator 3 up to when Kyle
Mm-hmm.
Reese gets sent back in time. I would probably just do and just make um John Connor the main character of like a fourth movie, and it just ends with them sending Kyle Reese back in time. I guess is what I would do. I know that's not very creative, but that's.
I don't think that there's that much to do creatively after Terminator Salvation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the problem is that once you depict the future war, there's not really that much to do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they should have cut the series off at 2 or maybe even 3. Feel like the series would have ended up much better off if that happened.
I just realized I'm wearing my Terminator T2 3D T-shirt. I just picked it out at complete random.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. You can't fight fate. You
Yep.
can't fight fate. Well, I didn't have anything else to say. I think that covers it pretty well. Did you have anything else you want to add?
I just wish I wish that the last 3 movies never happened, but I also wish that there's no 7th movie.
Um, yeah, it's time to let things die. What was have you put out anything recently?
Just streaming with you and other people, and Trump's endorsement. I'm still on hiatus.
Okay. Guys, make sure if you have it already, check out. Did you put up like a complete like version of the traditional Catholic iceberg?
Oh yeah, I have the complete version, but I did make an addendum after that when other stuff came
Oh, that
up.
was
But
part
there's
7.
like a 9 hour iceberg.
Okay, so guys, I recommend if you want to delve into the depths of autism, the traditional Catholic iceberg is like this really extensive series Serp did, where he goes through like just from normie Catholics to like conservatives to trads to schizotrads to like schisms within schisms of like Pope Saint Michael and like the disputed succession of Pope Michael.
Oh, I forgot the disputed succession of Pope
Wasn't it?
Michael.
Was it disputed success? I think it was, wasn't it?
Well, there was an independent old Catholic that started following Pope Michael right before he died, and now claims to be Pope Michael II.
And then
He's
there
from the
was like the
Philippines.
SSPX resist libs and like
There's like multiple SSPX resistance
and then
movements.
there's like what is it, the SSP 8?
No, it's the Marine Corps, I think. Like the SSPX, the Marine, like it because it's like the American like boomer SSPX. It's like we're the instead of the Marine Corps, they're the Marine Corps.
Uh-huh. But yeah, so go check that out. I think the punchline, it's almost like the aristocrats joke where it's just like all the stuff is just leading up to it. The absolute bottom of the traditional Catholic iceberg, the single most radical thing is actually reading Vatican II. I thought that that was really funny. That was like
It's the truth.
like the most insane thing. Like we had Our Lady is God. We had I don't know, like the weirdest shit. It's like just read Vatican II. Anyway, so check that out.
Oh.
Check out Serp's channel. He doesn't do stuff that often, but when he does stuff, it's really good. He puts a lot of
Well,
effort into it.
I'm kind of on hiatus for I'm a dad
Mm-hmm.
recently, so um I'm making notes on a series of videos that I'll make in the future.
Uh,
I plan to make it more like a season where I release videos like week after week after week in a row.
I rewatched our presidential ranking video
Hmm.
the other day. I had forgotten you did the video on autogynephilia. I think that was the most bizarre thing you've ever covered.
Hey, hopefully JD Vance watched it when he mentioned it in front of
I know he
what's his
mentioned
face?
it, and I was like, maybe it's funny because it's not actually impossible.
Hmm.
Because don't we know people who JD Vance follows?
You can go on to JD Vance if you have a bunch of people followed, and then you could figure out who he follows, or you just look through it. And the like, I think he followed Mid Castiza of the Day. Actually,
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still following it, but I mean, is a senate. Why would he unfollow people as a vice president after he followed these people as a senator?
So it's not impossible that he saw that
Yep.
and you inspired him
To mention it in the Joe Rogan's
to
podcast.
mention. You know what? That's gonna be my fan.
Okay.
But no, but it was just I love that one because you were just like you just have you do the deadpan like I do, and you're just like 100% seriously talking about like sexual mistargeting and stuff. And
Well,
it's
the thing is, I believe that video,
no,
and I
I
try
know,
to.
I know,
Part of
no,
the
I
videos, I tried to make it. I don't know. I mean, I think that if a trans person saw the rest of my channel, they wouldn't give me the time of day. But I try to have an
no, I know.
open
I'm
hand in
just
that
saying that's what
video.
makes it like so funny.
Oh, okay.
Is like is you seriously doing it like you took like you just look at the title like autogynephilia that sounds and then you like give those detailed it's just I don't know I just found it funny.
Thank you.
It was very informative, but anyways, thanks for coming on, man. So I was glad to talk to you.
See you, King.
See ya. Well, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this stream. More exciting content to come. I'm going to be on with Last Things next week. We're going to be talking about Fahrenheit 9/11. There is a full commentary track of Fahrenheit 9/11 that I'm working on. And Terrellian and I are going to do a video together where we are going to be going through the leaders in civilization games and determine which ones are affirmative action. That is, which leaders make sense to have in the games, which leaders are just put in because they wanted females or something like that. And I think that would be a lot of fun. So, God bless everybody.